guys, my name is Emily. I am about to run off to lunch. Excuse the wet hair. So the first thing that I want to film today is what I am currently reading. So if you've ever looked at my Goodreads shelf, you probably have noticed that there's like at least 5 books on there at all time, and in the past 2 months I have really tried to whittle it down to 1 book at a time, which turns out is the thing that doesn't work for me. I've actually had like the worst couple of reading months just in terms of motivation and interest, because I do eventually finish things, but if I'm not feeling in the mood for something, forcing myself to read it, it really doesn't go well. Since deciding that that was a bad strategy, I have started a whole bunch of books, and I'm gonna share them with you just to sort of check in on all of the things that I'm really excited to read. Let's start with the 2 that have been on my TBR the longest. So the first is the oldest. I think it's been on here 2 years now, and it's Robin Hobb's Ship of Magic. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm too far in to give up on it, but it's also been so long that I need to go back and start again. That just feels really demotivating to me, so I just, every time I look to pick this up, I don't. So I think I just maybe have to rip the bookmark out of it, set it aside, and then just start again. Because I do like what's happening here a lot better than I liked what was happening in the Assassin series. The second book I have here is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, which I fully intended to finish in time to participate in the Wheel of Time along. I really want to get into this world. I really like the magic, I like the characters, and I was in part rereading this by listening to it on audio every day as I drove to and from work. Turns out that's a really bad strategy, especially for this book where all of the men are named things that kind of sound like man, just generic man names. It's really confusing if you're not physically looking at the names as you're reading and you're sort of checking in only for 30 minutes twice a day. So bad strategy. What I think I might do, because I have read this before, is just give up on this one, read through the wiki summary, and then hop on the second one and read the physical book. That just might be a better way to go, because I already have a general idea of what happens here. I was only rereading it just to refresh myself, and clearly that's not working. The next book I have here is for my reread project, so I am endeavoring to reread 1 book a month for all of 2018. I have a video where I talk about the books that I'm interested in. I will link that down below. The book that I chose for this month was The Dumb House by John Burnside. Did I get his name right on the first time? Yes! I always call him Jeff Burnside for some reason. So I read this before when it was super hyped on BookTube and I wasn't a huge fan, and then recently, like just this week, picked it up and started reading it again. I think already having different expectations, I'm liking it a lot more. The next book I have here, again, I don't know where the dust jacket is. I will find it. It's Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. It's really good, but it's really dark. It's just one of those things where when you've worked really hard all day between like physically going to work and sort of the freelance work that I do for YouTube and all the other projects that I want to do, all of these sort of behind the scenes things take a lot of time and mental energy. And then to turn to something that I'm sure is really good. I like his narrative style, but it's heavy material. It is really heavy material, and it's not something that I find myself reaching for quite at the moment. I keep looking over because I'm having such a hard time keeping myself in focus. You might have noticed that in the past couple videos that like I'm constantly out of focus. The next book I have here is Under My Skin by A.E. Dooland. I believe this is a piece of self-published work that I'm not in focus at all. Let's try that. Let's see if that makes it focus. The next book I have here, I'm not gonna show you. I'm gonna pop on the screen in an edit because maybe that's why the focus is struggling. It's Under My Skin by A.E. Dooland, which I believe is a self-published, like, indie author's work. It is a piece of trans fiction. So it's about Min, who works this really impressive job, but she's not super happy doing what she's doing. She's really more of an artist. She has this DeviantArt account and a large following there. I had to stop reading because a fan of her work tracks her down and stalks her home and invades her space in such an unacceptable manner. I just couldn't handle this person invading her space in such a way. I think it's partly because like I put things on a public platform, and the thought of anyone stalking me to my place of work, waiting outside, following me home, getting into my apartment and leaving like flowers outside of the door of my apartment is so unsettling and disgusting. It's one of those things where, like, I think as a person who puts things on the internet, I'm very careful about not tagging things in my hometown or not putting memorable landmarks up or not mentioning where I work. There are certain things that I am willing to share. It bothers me so much. And like, I was reading this in the bath, and normally I bring 2 books with me, and I was like, no, I'll just bring 1 because I'm trying to be like monogamous to 1 book. And I actually had to stop and get out of the bath because I couldn't handle this little stalker person who I'm pretty sure is the love interest for Min. I have to stop. I have to put this away. For now, I do plan on finishing it, but I can't right now. The next book that I have here is Die Mitte der Welt by Andreas Steinhofel. This is the book that one of my favorite films, I guess, it is one of my favorite films, is based on. And so I decided to try and read it as my first book in German because I'm trying to learn the language. So what I'm doing with this is I am listening to the audiobook at an incredibly slow speed, and I could probably do it a little bit slower, especially because this appears to be an abridged recording. So you'll be following along and like the narrator's like, that's enough description. You get what's happening with the plot without all of this description. And then they skip to another part and you're like, oh crap, where's the new sentence? So that's not the best experience, but I think for now, hearing things read out loud as I follow along, like I had these books as a kid, you would put in the cassette tape. It would explain to you that like when you hear this sound, ping, it's time to turn the page, right? And it would read to you, and then every time it pinged, you'd turn the page. I'm kind of doing that with Die Mitte der Welt. Like, I'm not stopping for vocab I don't know, because hearing things, I grew up listening to people speak German and responding in English, so hearing things and seeing how they're written, I think is more helpful for my understanding than just reading. Because I never read in German. Oftentimes just looking at how a word is written doesn't trigger any sort of understanding in my brain if it's outside of my vocabulary, but hearing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I've definitely heard that word before and now I know what it means. And like hearing it in the context of the sentence, there's a certain amount of understanding that is happening. Already I'm noticing that the book is quite different from the film. There's a lot more focus on glass as a character. It opens with glass. And then also you learn how Phil and Katja meet, which is something that like you see them really close in the film. Like you understand that they are super best friends, but the book gives you context why. It is super slow going and it is very humbling to experience super slow reading. Like I read quite quickly in English, but it's humbling to spend 2 hours listening to an audiobook and reading and only be 60 pages in. I'm sort of in the background just vlogging the experience. I don't know if that footage will ever see the light of day, but just for my own sort of record keeping, I am vlogging the experience. And then the last book I have here is on my Kobo, and that is Furyborn. I can't remember the author, but I will pop a picture up on the screen. So this is an arc that I have been given access to through work as an Indigo employee in exchange for an honest review. And I have to say that it is the most confusing first book in a fantasy series that I have ever read. It just throws you right in and all of a sudden things are happening and people are angels and half humans and people are exploding in things of light. Bad guys are sort of mind invading people and finding things out and possessing bodies and causing people to jump off buildings, and like I've read 3 chapters. So much stuff has happened and I'm like, should I know about this? Should I understand this? Did I miss something? Like, is this a second series following a first series? I don't know, but I read the first 3 chapters this morning. I'm curious. It sounds really cool, but it's also like a really intense, abrupt opening. So we'll have to see how that goes. I will keep you posted on that, obviously. Have to have it read by April 11th. Hopefully you'll see it in my March wrap up. Those are all the things that I am currently reading. Let me know your thoughts on these reads in the comments down below. Are they things that you have read? Are they things that you have also DNF'd? Are you struggling with these things? Are they some of your favorite reads? And let me know what you are currently reading. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.